Who's good? Spin the leak here with a movie review. Every once in a while, you come across a movie with a concept that is so ridiculous that you just have to check it out. Movies like this Crazy Samurai 400 vs. 1, a 2020 film that is 94 minutes long, 77 minutes of which of this film are a continuous action shot, completely unbroken. And I found this movie the same way that I found, The Man Who Killed Hitler and then Bigfoot and other movies I haven't reviewed yet. I was just walking through the store. I saw this. I picked it up and went, "Oh yeah, that looks nice. That's an interesting concept." It's been a while since I watched a samurai film. Holy shit! What the fuck are they doing with this constant combat sequence of 77 fucking minutes? That's the entire goddamn movie. What the fuck? Now you're not given much context within the film itself. There's not a whole lot of dialogue. I mean, it is 77 minutes of action within the film itself. But even then, you're given like little hints in dress and off comments. What you can gather is Miyamoto Musashi, the crazy samurai, our main character, kind of an anti-hero type because he is eradicating an entire clan, is meant to show up for a duel against current clan heads. He's already killed two. There's two left, the elder and then a small child that is meant to be the next clan head. Now this clan is terrified of him, and they have hired a fuck ton of mercenaries, and they've gathered their remaining students. 400 in total. It's either 100 mercenaries and 300 students, or 100 students and 300 mercenaries, in order to prepare to fight Musashi, because he's underhanded, he's tricky, and he's fucking powerful. And what you can gather from the way that the movie flows and the continuous action shot is broken up, that he actually took time and arrived late to the duel to stash weapons and water and food, anything he could need for however long the fight lasted, and get a good feel of the terrain beforehand. Now, he jumps out of the top of a tree, kills both men in one fell swoop, and then the 77-minute action sequence kicks off. And the short build-up before the, big action sequence is basically just hyping Musashi up, saying that he's a fucking monster, having one guy running away in fear, not wanting to fight him, having everyone, share stories about him. And even then, it's really brief and it's not detailed. Uh, but it's basically just one big one man army sequence. And I wish that they had special features. I want to see how this film was made. I mean, there's not that much to it. You can watch it once and you can get an idea of what went into the making of it. And I have some theories that I'm going to share. But I would have liked to see how many takes that had to do. You know, I mean, a continuous sequence is tricky enough in and of itself, but 77 minutes. Can you imagine going through all of that? Like 75 minutes of running and, going through the choreography and cycling people in and out of shots and just being generally exhausted, and then that one person fucks it up. I want to know how many times they had to shoot this. So I'm gonna go over some basic, cinematography and things that I liked and didn't like and notice and all that jazz. I'm gonna talk about some theories I had about the way they did things, which is more than likely the way that they did things. Let's be honest, you literally see it happening in front of you. So cinematography. Now the actual cinematic sequences that weren't a continuous shot looked really fucking good. I'm not gonna lie. They were well thought out. They were executed with some decent lighting. They didn't do any big crazy tricks with the camera or anything like that. They were pretty standard sequences, and it gave you a feel for the tone you expected of the movie, kind of like a Raid Redemption feel. But the moment the actual combat started off, the moment the big continuous shot started off, you could tell that they were using like a handheld camera or something because the quality immediately dropped. And the combat started out really slow. You could tell that they were pacing themselves. And I assume that from a storytelling standpoint, it was also supposed to be the clan and the mercenaries terrified of Musashi, who showed up out of nowhere, killed two people without them noticing, and feeling him out. And him pacing himself because he sees all the motherfuckers he has to deal with. He's estimating he's dealing with 70, doesn't realize he's dealing with 400 plus, and he's just trying to conserve energy. And while you're going through these fight sequences of people weaving in and out, and occasionally having a boss that stands out and everyone clears out of the way so that Musashi can fight him, he also takes many water breaks and gets new weapons. Like, he has moments where he clears out an entire area, takes off, hides somewhere, gets a drink, spits water on his hand, spits water on the blade, sits there for a second, has a little talk to himself, and you can see his state slowly deteriorating each time he does this. He slows down for longer. You can see him in various states of exhaustion, and throughout the fight sequences, you can see that they're literally just cycling in the same people. So whenever someone gets hit, they don't go on the ground. They get low and then they crawl out of frame, and then they loop around and come back after a minute to cycle in once a few more people have been taken out. And the combat is really slow paced. There's a couple moments where it really picks up, and there's a lot of moments where you sit there and go, that was pretty cool, that was pretty tight. But overall, it's a movie that within the first 20 minutes, almost all the viewer base can pretty much just fuck off because they're like, this isn't what I expected. Let's face it, the majority of the movie looks like something you could film yourself. Just grab a camera, get a bunch of friends, practice a little bit, do it, edit some CG blood in, and you're done. That's essentially how it looks. But you can tell that they put the work in. This is a movie that I can respect the fuck out of. I'll admit, like the first 15 minutes of the fight sequence, I was sitting there like, okay, this is garbage. I'm gonna have to sit through the entire thing. But as it went, I got more and more invested in it. And it's not like the movie did anything different. It's not like it changed things up. It was pretty much the same thing all the way through. But you started realizing the amount of work that they put in and the amount of planning that went into it. How they planned spacing and rest for the actors. How they would cycle in people at certain points. How they would move areas and still have people in certain spots that were within the camera view. I mean, there's a lot of continuity issues, like people changing positions after they're dead. There's this big rain sequence where everyone shows up with dry clothes afterwards, and during the entire rain fight sequence, you can tell that they're only pouring water on one spot. Stuff like that. But they also have like these nice little details where they distract you from the fight. So during the non-stop segment, there was a scene where he was taking a rest. You could see people in the background come in to search for him. He looks at them. He darts out without being seen, and then the camera focuses in on a couple of the guys talking while everyone else is spreading out. And they start arguing, they split up, and once they're ready to go at each other, Musashi comes in out of nowhere, kicks one guy down, kills the other, and tells the other one to fuck off because he knows that the guy doesn't want to fight him. But when you look at that from a storytelling standpoint, you're like, okay, this is a pleasant distraction, but what the hell's going on? But when you look at it from the creative standpoint, at that point, they'd have already been going for like 30 plus minutes. And there hadn't been much of a break for the protagonists. The other guys, they can cycle in and out. It doesn't really matter. You're not memorizing their faces. But that was a good moment for him to sit down out of view of the camera, because all this happened like within a small area. Get some blood splattered on him, sit down, take a breather, get a little bit of extra water in him, and then pop out and get ready for the rest of the scene because he's at the halfway point. So some of the practical effects, they didn't really do any practical effects because you don't want a gag to fuck up. So most of it was CG, but they would have small details like I remember one scene where they caught up to him after a while. He grabs this guy by the collar of his shirt, drags the katana across his throat, and throws him into the camera guy. And the camera guy rotates and shows a completely different person laying down covered in blood. That's a continuity issue, but it's meant to be the person they just killed. It's supposed to be a nice little effect. They pulled it off kind of well. It's campy, and I expected it to be worse, but it was fun. It was really fun. All that being said, this movie definitely isn't for everybody. Like I said, it's very slow starting off. You actually have to get a good bit into the film to be able to appreciate what's being put in front of you. At that point, if you have to get used to it, I don't see it being entirely popular. For me, this is four potatoes all the way. I love this movie. I respect the hell out of it. It's brave to do something like that, and they did it to a point that it's tolerable, that people can ease into it. But at the same point, someone just picked up this movie and seen it for the first time, they're expecting something completely different. They're going to expect some like high quality action. They're going to expect like all this shit going on, not well-based dancing and choreography and balanced combat for the sake of the actors and the plot, making sure the segment can be done well so that they're not rushing, so that they're less likely to fuck up. It as messy as it looks, you can tell that a lot of thought and work went into this. So definitely has respect in my book. I'm definitely going to be watching it again, but it's going to be in the background. I'm not going to be paying much attention to it unless I just want to see Musashi. So Have you seen this film? What are your thoughts on? Post in the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe. Keep on keeping on. Remember, movie's not for everybody. I will fully admit that this is a fucking boring movie. But if you're like me and you struggle through it, you're going to find something to treasure about it. Hands down. Keep on keeping on.